Okay, so hello there, Pecha Kucha. My name's Jude. I'm a technologist and prototyping expert, I guess you could say. I've worked for a bunch of companies like Lego and Dyson and startups like Subaru and Meiku. I'm basically really passionate about exploring things that are novel and untested. And recently, I've been involved in a series of lockdown lectures. So, without further ado, I would like to share with you the series that I've been working with Bangor University. Okay, so here we go. So lockdown lectures, for anyone who doesn't know, are basically a product of the COVID world that we're in, of a bunch of students aren't able to go to traditional lectures. Now, with my experience in prototyping, user research, and communication of ideas and how to create change, that was basically what I wanted to take students on a journey through. But in many ways, this wasn't my first rodeo with Bangor University, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, is in Wales. I had, for the past 3 years, been to their incredible design conference with everyone from Seymour Powell all the way through to Unilever, DCA, loads of great people there. And in many ways, I've always been someone who's had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about like bringing design to the country, because I grew up in a place not dissimilar called Cumbria. And that basically, I honestly didn't know what a designer did, or that you could even legitimately get a career in that. So it was kind of extraordinary that, I didn't have this and had a really messy career to get to this. But here I am today, doing what I love. And I'm right now sitting in this 2 meter cube where I get a lot of stuff done. And here it is in basically bare bones setup of my computer, and basically just little post-it notes, cue cards of figuring out what I'm going to say in all these lectures. And I kind of love revealing the sort of hack, as it were. So a few people ask me, what software did you use? And actually, I've got a PDF in the window of my computer, and then photo booth, and then text editor. And I've basically just carefully assembled them and then screen grabbed the whole thing. So there isn't any technically fancy software, I'm just hacking it. And I've always been someone who hacks things just to get the quickest, or I guess it's to say minimum viable product these days. And this one was basically creating a whole series on how to make things, prototypes out of cardboard. And I've got my tripod hanging from the ceiling next to that orange arrow with a camera and my wife's compact makeup mirror so that I can see what my hands are doing. So again, getting back to the actual series, what I did was essentially chunk this into an intro, and the blue bit's all about prototyping, the orange bit's all about how can you make change in the world, and the last little bit in red is kind of like the motivation for the fact that it kind of sucks right now to be a student in final education. And again, that was kind of my vibe of that. I wanted to sort of say, look, I didn't just show you all the glossy stuff I did with Lego and Dyson. I actually wanted to show you my final year project when I was in your shoes, to really be like, warts and all, this is the prototype I made for the NHS, for a tube that goes down your throat to hopefully stop your trachea rupturing. And so what was great about this is, because I was bringing real examples, we had this great Q&A session, and we just had one this morning, actually, a second one with Peridor, who's hosting it from Bangor University, and Alid and Dewey, who also tutors at the product design course. And you can see all the questions coming in down the side. And in many ways, I think the thing that I was trying to communicate to students, especially creatively speaking in this world, is that this thing of T-shaped people, meaning you've got all these little broad experiences and a few areas of depth. And in really way, I was trying to provoke people not to worry about the fact that they're not specialists usually these days. And so another example that I used, which I felt was very timely, is that this is like a Zoom setup, just as we're doing this ourselves with Pecha Kucha. But if you imagine that little blue block being a skill, then who else can bridge through their T-shaped creativeness to someone else who might have a very deep area? And so what I realized when I was sort of plotting, if you like, my global experiences in design and creative industries, is that they're scattered everywhere. It's kind of messy, and it's only when you sort of post-rationalize them that the T and the formality and the folio and the narrative emerges. And so in many ways, I kind of really wanted students to sort of appreciate that actually I'm really not the oracle here. That even though I've got all these different, little squares, little chunks of experience, a lot of it is because I've worked with incredible people. So this is where I came upon the idea of, never mind what I think, what do people who I respect think? And so this is what yielded the byproduct, which I'm also really proud of the lockdown lecture series, which was a laterally speaking, as I call it, VCast or videocast, which sounds weird saying it. I guess podcast sounded weird. But basically, I've interviewed over 20 people as well as doing these lectures in 2 weeks. And I kind of, again, going behind the scenes, there's always a little tricky thing that you've got to get right. And it turns out one of the problems with recording Resume is that the audio quality is terrible. So I actually had to create an acoustic pillow, as I called it, which was basically putting a phone on a little pillow to remove some of the ambient reflection and noise. And you feel kind of weird asking people to do this, but I love the fact this is Sarah from the British Museums, essentially just putting it on a tea towel and just sort of thinking, this is bonkers. Really? This is going to help? But I love the fact that actually when you involve people who aren't necessarily from a product design or engineering background, it is kind of infectious. But what it meant is that the product of her and me talking together, and we're talking about LGBT all the way through to manga, all the way through to sort of ancient artifacts and 3D rendering. The point is all of this comes together as a better package because we had gone through that burn-in of understanding the limitations of the technology, but also the potential of Zoom and other things. So again, big shout out to this gentleman here, Gibran Farah, who was basically helping take those audio tracks from the 2 smartphones and stack them on top of each other and effectively, smooth out the sound and make it sound good. But it was kind of credit that really, as you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got all the great lectures that I did, which I'm very proud of. But in many ways, I think the best compliment is that I've almost sort of brought in all this, don't just listen to me, listen to all these other people who are doing incredible work out there in the world. And I feel I never would have thought to interview them had I not actually had a COVID environment. So in many ways, that for me is the moral of the story, that the constraints in some ways led me to realize that the whole experience is greater than the sum of the parts. And that really is where I've just had a whale of a time doing this. And it's definitely been a silver lining to what's been an otherwise pretty tough time of it. So thanks so much for listening, and take care. Bye-bye.